you're a sky, 'cause you're a sky full of stars. I'm gonna give you my heart, 'cause you're a sky.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have your attention, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you to please be upstanding for the bride and groom, Mr. and Mrs. William Badger. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mend It. Please give your warmest welcome to the father of the bride, Mr. Christopher Slack.
I think I'm seriously thinking of letting Maisie do the whole thing. Thank you, Steve. Can everybody hear me at the back? And no jokes about I'll swap. All right? Good. Fine. Eleanor and I are delighted to welcome you to Mend It today, which we've called home for more than 4 decades. Memories from that first decade come flooding back, some good, some bad. While William and Alex arrived before we moved here, Richard was actually born in the house, and between them they were responsible for quite a few of the changes that we made. Again, some good. Most of the vegetable beds that we inherited turned into grass for football and cricket. Some not so good. We used to have a very nice greenhouse which was destroyed by air rifle fire. Hawks Hill and Bourne End became a source of friendship for parents and children alike, and those continue to this day. Sadly, over the years, some friends have been lost. Jackie Waggett, Valerie and Rupert Dingley, and more recently John Cundall are no longer with us. And another person we were much looking forward to welcoming today was Will's grandmother, Mona. She very sadly died this summer, age 90. And William will say more about her later. But without standing, I'd ask you just to raise your glasses and toast absent friends. The 80s saw a new generation born into Hawks Hill. First, Malcolm and Heather, the best neighbours anybody could ask for, produced Emma, and then Jackie and John produced Katie, who was married from Mend It last year. Then, in 1985, Harriet was born. The boys were a different decade, and while they took her to their hearts, it must have felt occasionally as if she had 4 fathers. However, she had Emma and Katie as surrogate sisters, and they have remained lifelong friends. I feel that an early history of Harriet would not be complete without including the first love of her life. And I'm very sorry to mention it today, Will, but for historical accuracy purposes. He was, you'll be glad to hear, on the short side, with brown hair and soulful eyes, and Harriet really had him eating out of her hand. I'm of course talking about Sparrow, the beloved pony that featured large most Saturdays and Sundays, and who, had he still been around, would be here undoubtedly today in the marquee with a very silly hat on. When her school days started, new friendships were forged, and Emma Watkins and Lucy Saunders, both here today, were added to the Harriet Slack Friends for Life Club. The 90s saw Harriet move to from Godstow to Rugby, her first time away from home, and a time for growing up. And while her brothers had paved the way for her, I suspect the reputations they left behind were more of a burden than a help. To arrive to the sounds in your first week of, oh God, not another Slack, is hardly the best introduction you could hope for. But of course, with tribulations and trials came friendship as well, and we have a very large number of Deanies here tonight. I wonder where they are. When the moment came for her to move from Rugby, it was probably the most important decision she ever made in her life. She chose Durham and went in 2004. And during those 3 years, she gained more than just a degree. She got new friends, many of whom are here today, a red Mini, which is still going strong, and an ability to cope with amazing volumes of alcohol. But undoubtedly, the most important was meeting a man who today has become our son-in-law, Will Badger. Remarkably, Harriet has now known Will for a third of her life. And over the last decade, we two have got to know him well. His first challenge was clearly passing muster with her brothers, and he leapt that hurdle with relative ease. His second challenge was remembering the names of Harriet's nephews and nieces, something her father sometimes has difficulty with, but I'm only joking. George, Ollie, Lucinda, Scarlett, Sophie, Ed, Maisie, Lily, Rose. Another challenge worth mentioning is that he has spectacularly failed to allow me to win a game of golf. For those of you who don't know the story, Will asked me for permission to marry Harriet on the course at Huntercombe. Eleanor and Harriet had gone for a walk in the Oxfordshire countryside and managed to get themselves lost. So text messages were coming in thick and fast, asking for a rescue party to be launched. Well, we ignored it as best we could, and it wasn't until we were halfway up the 18th when William raised the subject of marriage. I told him I was delighted. We shook hands and rushed to the car park to try and find the girls. In the car, I asked him if a date had been settled. Sometime late summer, he said. And if he'd bought a ring. No was the answer. At that time, we found the girls. Without thinking, I jumped out of the car, kissed Harriet, said, "Congratulations." To which she replied, "What for?" In my defence, and I admit it's a pretty weak defence, I had no experience to fall back on. I had asked Eleanor to marry me before we'd asked her father for permission, and none of my daughters-in-law had asked my permission to marry my sons. Will brings to today's celebration his own family from nearby Horton-cum-Studley, and we're delighted to have Colin and Caroline here with Will's brothers, James, George and Henry, his sister Laura, and other members of the Badger clan, including 3 of the delightful bridesmaids, Isabel, Alice and Ella. Before I finish, you'll be grateful to hear, I must thank Eleanor for the amazing job she's done organising today's event. Preparations began on the 19th of July 2014 when Will and Harriet announced their engagement in Cornwall. Will asked us to try and arrange the wedding for today, the 19th of September. His reason being that her birthday is on the 19th, they were engaged on the 19th, so it would help him not forget anniversaries. Since then, the house and Eleanor's iPad have been host to marquee companies, food producers, flower people, frock makers, and the rest of the paraphernalia that go into making a memorable day appear absolutely effortless. She's achieved it all with fantastic efficiency and with help from her companions in crime, James and Jenny, who've made the garden and marquee look so fantastic and have provided the food we are shortly to enjoy. I must also thank Edwin Heath for providing the immaculate Bentley that took us to the church, and of course Malcolm and Heather, without whose help in providing extra access to the garden, this whole event could not have happened. Finally, we come back to Harriet and Will. We have nurtured Harriet during the first 3 decades, and she's given us much joy. It's now time for us to pass the baton to Will, and I will ask you all to be upstanding, raise your glasses to our daughter and her new husband. We wish all the happiness in the world. Will and Harriet, Mr. and Mrs. Badger.
Ladies and gentlemen, very handsome groom, Mr. Will Badger.
Thank you, Maisie. Chris, thank you very much for your kind words. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you over the last 10 years. Sports is, as you alluded to, has definitely been our bonding area. I think the last time Chris and I stood on this court was back in summer '07. I remember it well because on that sunny Sunday afternoon, Chris dusted off his junior Wimbledon whites and destroyed me in what was possibly his career finale match, 6-1, and after to Chris, yeah. So after retiring from tennis and equipping me with some golf clubs, you've always been a great sport on the golf course, and yeah, I've enjoyed every game, especially last year when you gave me your blessing. Cornwall, where I then proposed, is always a favourite holiday of mine. You and all the family have always been so generous and hospitable, so thank you very much. I know this may come as a surprise to some of you, but I haven't really had much to do with the planning or organising of today. Carefully selecting the local ale, organising a booze cruise to the Champagne region, and head of signage was pretty much my limit.
You did it well.
Yeah, thank you. So Eleanor, wow, what a day, because this is absolutely perfect, and
You'll get used to it in the next 50 years.
yeah, your kindness and energy that has gone into organising today has been relentless, so thank you so much. Please can I ask you all be outstanding and raise a glass to Chris and Eleanor. Chris and Eleanor. When Eleanor had managed to book the church, florist, photographer, marquee, all within days of the proposal, I knew we'd appointed a pro. Talking of professionals, there are another number of other people I must also thank. Firstly, Mum and Dad, for being absolutely amazing parents. Mum, you're the most committed and caring mother and have supported me through everything. Dad, similarly, you're so selfless, you work incredibly hard on the farm, all hours, all day. Yeah, you're still extremely good-humoured, so yeah, a role model to us all, so thank you. And especially also for having such a big family, because yeah, that's just, yeah, brilliant. Thank you also for funding today's liquid refreshments. Talking of booze, Greg, please can you translate to your parents a huge thanks for transporting the red wine over from France just a couple of days ago. I'm sure we'll enjoy some very shortly. Thank you, Mum, Laura and Auntie Jane for your combined effort with the cake. I think you all agree it looks absolutely fantastic. Readers, Katie, Annie, Emma and Anna, thank you for your angelic reading. Thank you for your angelic reading in the church earlier. I know it meant a lot to Harriet to have you as part of the service. My ushers and best men, guys, thank you for your heroic assistance over the last 24 hours. Thanks also for the brilliant stag do and getting me back in one piece. Naturally, as a bloke, I would not normally say this, but I'm so lucky to have such good friends as you, so thank you. Finally, thank you all for coming, particularly those who have travelled from afar. Anna and Chaz from Dubai, Anna from Jersey, and Zoe and Bennett all the way from Bermuda. Thank you for bringing some sunshine with you, because this has been brilliant. But I can safely say this is the best day of my life, so thank you all for coming. So lastly and most importantly, on to Harriet, Ratty Hatfield, my absolutely gorgeous wife. Words cannot describe how beautiful you look today, and I know you look stunning every day, Harriet, but today you're truly dazzling. I am an extremely lucky and fortunate man, and people say there are beauty boundaries, but I think it's that are rarely crossed, and with you I think it's safe to say that I've punched up a level in marrying you. Whilst it was your beauty, however, I spotted across the dining room at Hatfield College in Durham at a wine society event in 2005, I seriously hit the jackpot. As beauty aside, you're the most amazing person, loving, generous, thoughtful, and in this regard I see some of my grandmother in you, who was also the epitome of amazing. So I know you're here in spirit today, Granny, and we miss you greatly, and I'm so pleased you got to meet Harriet. Harriet, you're also an adventurer, and I love that in you. And we've had some fantastic ones, supboarding around Snake Island in the Philippines, doing our own 3-peak challenge in Scotland whilst on holiday last year. Your map reading ability, however, is probably your only shortfall. This was particularly evident when you managed to accidentally navigate us into Bosnia whilst travelling in Croatia a few years ago. And as we'd stealthily got in, driving back across the border was somewhat challenging. And a few days later, driving into the mountains of Montenegro, being interrogated by police for speeding was particularly memorable. The friendly police officer who spoke no English at all tried to explain he was going to take us to The Hague. I then tried to communicate with the officer using the language section of the Lonely Planet Guide to Montenegro, having failed to find anything useful except the usual essential phrases, please could I have a beer, or where is the office of tourism? And after about 45 minutes of negotiations and him confiscating my driver's license, the officer tried to tell us to get out of our Fiat Panda, at which point Hattie cunningly conjured up a tear or two, pulled out her threadbare sequin travel purse and bribed him with a €20 note and some coppers. Harriet, you're amazing, and I cannot wait to spend the rest of my life with you. You are my best friend, but today I'm honoured to be able to call you my wife. I promise to keep it brief, so I'll leave it there. But once again, thank you all for making today such a special day. It means the world to have you all here to celebrate with us. Good luck, George and Henry. Just remember that your weddings and stag do's are still to come. Finally, I'd like to finish with a toast to the bridesmaids. And I'm sure you'll all agree that they look beautiful today. And we're spectacular, so please could the bridesmaids come up, actually, we've got a little something for you each. Also coming up, let's do a toast to the bridesmaids.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give your warmest welcome to the funniest, best men you will ever hear mend it. Mr. George and Henry Badger.
Thank you very much for that warm welcome. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Eleanor and Chris for a truly wonderful day. William was given the deadline of Christmas to choose his best man. So it was on a crisp February morning when he asked us both to take on the role. Being the younger brothers, we're used to taking instruction, and the honour of this request was no exception. William has even given us a list of acceptable topics he was keen for us to stick to. So we'll see how we get on. As tradition dictates, I'll start by reading out telegrams from guests who are unable to be here today. Dearest Chris and Eleanor, we want to wish you all the best for Harriet's wedding on Saturday. Once again, we want you to know how sorry we are we will not be coming to the wedding. All the months of planning are over, and I'm sure it will be a wonderful occasion. We will certainly be drinking a toast to the lovely couple, and we will never forget their anniversary. We look forward to hearing all about it. Lots of love, Sandy and Tony Farr. Dear Harriet and Will, we are so very sorry that we cannot be with you today, but we will be thinking of you on this very special day and wishing you both many years of happiness together. With our love, Barry and Ginny Dalthwaite. Okay. It's fair to say that William's most widely recognised characteristic is his charm. It stood him in good stead through the years and was first noticed by his primary school teacher, Miss McBean. To this day, at Dad's Beckley School Governors meetings, she still asks after William. And to quote her, "With eyes like those, I could forgive him for anything." One subject William took seriously, even from an early age, was design technology. This passion really came into its own at 16. Each year, from GCSE through to A-level, William built something for coursework he really thought would benefit him. He began with a barbecue for cooking at pool parties. Then tried his luck with a swinging bench for romantic stargazing. And finally had a go at a sturdy wooden bed for a comfortable night's sleep. Throughout school, William has made numerous long-standing friendships, and to his testament, it's great to see so many of these faces here today. William has always been passionate about sports. Tennis, golf, skiing, surfing, running, ping pong, to name only a few. But his favourite, without doubt, is rugby. Unlucky for some, William at number 13 in the centres was no dainty back. His raw talent saw him play for Buckinghamshire County, as well as gain a scholarship to Stowe, where he scored a hat-trick on his opening game for the first 15. William's love of rugby next took him to New Zealand, where he spent a gap year tutoring at Waihi Prep School, revelling in the Antipodean lifestyle. Kiwis, despite being quite impressed with his rugby, took no mercy on William's other habits. He left England as a boy, scared of broccoli, cauliflower and Brussels sprouts, but returned a man, no longer quivering at the sight of boiled vegetables. That said, I'm pretty sure he's still holding a bottle of ketchup under the table. Of course, it was whilst at Durham that William met the love of his life, beer. William has a tendency, after 2 or 2.5 pints, to initiate the drinking games. He's no more comfortable doing so than at the Dog and Badger, the replica pub he helped design and renovate with Dad at the farm. William's tastes matured in his second year at Durham as he developed more of a preference for wine. This naturally led to William becoming a cornerstone member of the Durham Wine Society. He'll tell you it was his passion for deep reds and crisp whites that lured him back every Wednesday evening. We'll tell you it was £5 all-you-can-drink entry fee. Either way, as William briefly alluded to already this evening, it was halfway through his second bottle one chilly November evening that William and Hattie first met. Hattie's role on the wine sock exec was mistress of the cheese, which meant that she was in charge of bulk ordering the weekly stock of Camembert. It was on that evening that she asked her friend in the rugby club who the dashing, velvet jacket wearing, wine connoisseur in the corner was. "That's Will Briggs," was the reply. "And who's the guy with his shirt off next to him?" "That's William Badger." One thing led to another, and by the end of the night, William was charming Hattie with his usual dance routine, spinning and swaying to take that in Durham's finest establishment, Clute. I believe I'm right in thinking that William is going to do his best to reenact those moves as a first dance this evening. A rapid succession of cliched dates at Durham's only restaurant, Hyde, and a trip to Somerset House for some ice skating soon cemented the relationship. William asked Hattie to be his girlfriend on Christmas Day, thinking it the best present he could get her. And a very easy way to remember their anniversary. William's confidence blossomed with Hattie, and he was soon a much photographed and adored celebrity at Durham. William's character-defining charm certainly doesn't disappear in front of the camera, as I'm sure today's many photos will prove. But being so good-looking does come with its own drawbacks, as William suffers from a severe inability to look any camera in the lens. Commonly known as posing, William developed the condition in his early school years, and was severely inflicted when taking part in the Durham University charity fashion show. Naturally, William modelled the country look. Clad in polo shirts, popped collars and Barber jackets, his eyes were focused anywhere but the camera, whilst Hattie's were set firmly on him. Incidentally, Hattie was on the fashion show organising committee that year, although William continues to insist he was selected purely on merit. William had a wonderful time at uni and certainly hit the jackpot with Hattie. But on the other hand, he's had a fair share of bad luck. His lung spontaneously collapsed 2 years ago. He was knocked off his bike last year in London. He tore his cruciate ligament on the first day of a family ski trip in St Anton, and he's broken his collarbone on the rugby field. This last injury was a blow to William's rugby career, but to his credit, he's shown great resilience. His collarbone was severely damaged and he had to wear a pretty serious neck brace. He hasn't looked back since. On the flip side, there's lots of positive stuff to cover. He's completed the Prudential Ride 100 race, not once, but twice. He's trained Rolo, our Cocker Spaniel, to win field trial champion competitions. And he even got invited to a meal with Coldplay in Bangkok, having met Chris Martin in a lift. Right, at this point I thought it'd be a good idea to take stock and see how we're doing compared to the list of William's acceptable topics, which, coincidentally, I have here. Right, so we've done fashion show model, skilled carpenter, drinking prowess, county rugby star, mates with Coldplay, winning Prue Ride 100. Okay, so that really just leaves us with Hattie. I first met Hattie at home on the farm. Ever the romantic, William had treated Hattie to a clay pigeon shooting lesson down in one of the fields. He's a good shot. Oh, take that off the list, Henry. But a better teacher, and he'd made sure Hattie was suitably trained on how to safely handle his... Hello? Sorry. And he'd made sure Hattie was suitably trained on how to safely handle his 410 in case of misfire. I'm sorry, Will, I know you asked to leave out the innuendos, but it was getting hard, and I just had to slip one in. One of Hattie's guilty pleasures is baking, and William was immediately drawn in by her cupcakes. Hattie follows Great British Bake Off religiously, and interestingly enough, Eleanor once hosted Mary Berry on this very tennis court for a Sunday ladies doubles match. Another of Hattie's penchants is for a German spirit called Jägermeister. For those of you unfamiliar with the drink, think well-stocked spice cupboard meets 35% moonshine. One February night, while celebrating William's 29th birthday in a bring-your-own-booze Thai restaurant, we found ourselves 4 bottles of Jägermeister down before we'd even finished our mains. For dessert, Hattie insisted the entire restaurant partake in a competitive drinking game. Now, Hattie isn't one for losing, so when it became clear that her teammates, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, on the next door table weren't pulling their weight, William was called upon to hold back a rather overzealous then girlfriend. In the end, and much to her delight, Hattie's team finished first. But I think it's fair to say there were no winners that night. William, impressed that he had finally met someone as passionate as him, needed no further indication that it was time to head down to Hatton Garden. Now, William's plan for a romantic proposal in Cornwall didn't get off to the ideal start. It wasn't until well after midnight that they finally arrived, after William insisted they wait for the washing machine to finish with his Durham Fashion Show hoodie. So, imagine Hattie's delight when William rudely awoke her at 7 a.m. the following day and insisted they go for an early morning run.
few carefully chosen words later, she found herself jogging along and bumping into a suspicious number of friends and relatives en route to Damer Bay. The final grueling push to the top of Bray Hill had the two of them emerged above the beautiful Camel estuary. With the sun providing the setting for a glorious morning, William seized the opportunity and dropped to one knee. Hattie immediately feared the worst. The other lung must have collapsed. He's torn his ACL again. But fortunately, before she could even think about calling for the Coast Guard, William had pulled out a little box, and to his delight, Hattie obliged.
This set in motion what is now affectionately referred to as Wedmin. Having grown up working on the farm, William prides himself on his hands-on attitude and problem-solving abilities. So when asked to prepare the tennis court entrance and steps to the marquee we now find ourselves in, he spent an incredible amount of time pacing around, hands on hips, tutting and shaking his head, muttering, didn't mention it was going to be this big a job. Hours went by in this fashion until our father Colin arrived and had the whole job finished in half an hour. I was fortunate enough to be involved in probably the most crucial wedding preparation of all, the champagne run to France. I like to think William and Hattie invited my girlfriend Hannah and I to join them because of our refreshing company, superb wit and excellent conversation. And not at all because we had a bigger car, which, in William's own words, could fit more booze. Relying on William's now quite rusty language skills, we visited 3 vineyards, each time William haggling aggressively and confidently, until Hattie pointed out the owner didn't speak English. We finally settled for Alain Rondeau, a small independent farmer whose champagne I hope you've enjoyed this evening. We'd like to finish on a serious note. It's been a truly incredible day, and again a huge thank you to Ellen and Chris. Evident by all the adoring bridesmaids, groomsmen, family and friends, Hattie will be the most caring wife. William, if you're half as good a husband as you are an older brother, then Hattie is a very lucky lady. It's been a real privilege to have a brother and now a sister-in-law who we can both look up to, and we've no doubt how wonderful a husband and wife you will make.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in raising your glasses and toasting Mr. and Mrs. Badger.
Ladies and gentlemen, my final duty tonight is to invite William and Harriet to cut their cake.
Ladies and gentlemen, formalities are over, and you'll be delighted to hear you're now going to be able to eat, which is great. There's one practical bit, which is there are some aprons on the back of chairs. They were initially laid out. If you had an apron on the back of the chair, you had been identified as the man who was capable
of cutting a fowl. However, if you find yourself as a lady who doesn't want to cut a fowl with the apron on the back of your table, identify the nearest man to you who's good with a carving knife and give it to him. And on that, we're going to close down here and leave you to enjoy your evening.
Cause you're a sky full of stars. I'm gonna give you my heart. Cause you're a sky full of stars. Cause you light up the path.